In my academy, we've got this full sound design course where we look at Serum 2, how it works, how to create every single type of sound in it, and how to make the sounds sound good in your tracks. We've been making all sorts of sounds inside, so I thought why not make an updated all sounds that I use in drum and bass video. So without further ado, let's start creating every single type of sound in drum and bass. The first sound we're going to start with is an 808 bass, and it sounds like this. So let's initialize the patch, and we're going to start with a analog BD sine, so a sine wave, and we're going to put this -2 octaves, and we're just going to move the wavetable position. So we can do it on here, or we can do it on here, and we're going to move it to 79%, just to give it a little bit of movement in the wavelength. And then we're going to turn the rand all the way off. And then what we're going to do is come to this LFO1, and we're going to drag this all the way here, and then drag this down here, and turn it to envelope mode. And this is going to cause the more transient part of the 808 hit at the start of the sound. So transient just means the very initial hit of the sound. And to do this, we're going to drag the LFO on to here, which is the coarse pitch, and then we're going to hold Shift Alt and click to get it to go one way, and then we're going to set this to 21%, and you can see that transient click coming in now, and we're going to now remove some of that transient click in the high range by adding a filter. So we can just click here, filter 1, that's automatically added to filter 1, and then we're going to simply change this to MG low 18, and then change the cutoff to about 213 Hertz. Now we want to bring this sound out, and we can do this on the effects tab. So let's first grab a distortion, and we're going to put this on Sine Shaper all the way down here, and we're going to whack this on 40%. You can see we're starting to get that sound out. Let's just add a compressor. We can boost this louder if we want. And then we've got the core of the sound, but we can then change envelope 1 and make this less sustained to give it that 808 bouncy sound. To turn the sustain off all the way to 0, and then we get that sound. And then we can just change it more by changing the decay. And then we can also drag it here as well, just to taste. And if you want to get it even smoother, you can increase this rate as well. So we could put this to 116, for example, and make it even smoother. And then we can also go like this. And you just get slight variations in the sound. So now we end up with this. The next bass we're going to use is a Foghorn bass, which is great for rollers drum and bass. And it sounds like this. Let's initialize the patch. So first, let's grab a basic shapes, put this down -2, and then we're going to turn this into a triangle and turn the rand off. Now we're going to grab wavetable B, and we're going to grab a basic shapes again and create square, but move it so it's in this position. And we're going to put this down -1 octave. And then if we press play now, you get that not very nice noise to start with. But what we can do now is turn the level off here, and we can do some warping. So we can do some PD, we come down to here, ROM B, and now this sound is getting sent into this sound. So when we turn this, we can warp it a certain percentage. And we're going to try 30% and see what sound we get. There we go, that sounds a lot more clean now. Now let's add a sub bass, and we can just drop this down 2 octaves as well. And turn the level off for this. Let's just turn the level full for oscillator A. Now let's go to the LFO tab, and we want to create a envelope so it just plays once because it's a foghorn. And we're going to drag this all the way here, put a little curve in it, and then we're going to make this a bar long because foghorns are quite long. And then we're just going to drag the LFO onto the level of the sub. Now we get a nice sub in the sound. Let's now come to filter 1, turn this on. And we're going to keep MG low 12 on, but we're going to turn the cutoff to 1381. And then we're going to put LFO 1 on it, but we're only going to do 15%. Now let's buff this sound up with some effects. So first, let's grab a distortion. Let's go to Stomp Box, which is down here, and let's put this on 13%. Let's add some hyper. Turn the mix right down here, turn the size down and turn the mix up. Now let's add a compressor, and we're going to choose multiband, turn the highs up a bit, turn the lows up a bit, and turn this to 0.75. We can also turn the gain up and smash the sound. Now let's add an equalizer, and we'll just turn the highs down a little bit to about -2.9, and then we'll add an LFO back to it. So when it's playing at the start, we get the most highs and then it gradually tapers off. And then we'll add a filter on, and we'll change this to add bass to get some more bass in there. Turn the cutoff down, turn the drive up, and turn the through all the way across. Now we need to create that down pitch effect. So we can do this with LFO2. And if we just go to the Matrix tab, set this to LFO2, and then come across to here, go to Global, and then Main Tuning. And then if we simply set this to 2%, and then set this LFO up here like this, and put this on bar mode as well, so it matches LFO1 here. Now when we play it, we should get a little down filter effect. And let's put that on envelope mode as well, so it doesn't re-trigger. We get this really cool slapping rollers bass, which sounds sick if you put it on a drop. It just slaps you in the face, basically. Now we're going to create a stab bass. Now there's loads of different types of stab basses you can make, and I recommend getting my new sample pack, the Future Jump Up sample pack, because there's so many in that pack. There's a link down below to grab that. But the one we're going to make sounds like this. Let's initialize the patch. Now we're going to use two basic shapes square waves. This first one's going to go -2, and this second one is going to go +1 and +7. Listen to how strong that sounds already. Let's turn the rand off on the first one, and then let's turn the sub on and leave it on the sine wave, put it -2. And turn the level off. Now let's create an LFO shape, put it on envelope because we want it to be a one-shot stab, and then we're going to shape it on here. So first I'm going to put this trip on, which just changes the rate amount, and if we do 1/4 T, we get this different rate, which I think sounds really great. And then we'll just drag this here, drag the middle bit of this down a little bit like this, and then we'll drag this up to create this shape. It's not doing anything at the moment, but we're going to drag it onto the sub. And we're also going to come to filter 1, change this to add bass, turn the cutoff all the way down, and then apply LFO1 to it. And then we're going to put this on at 63%, which is going to get this sound. And then we're going to turn the res off and turn the drive up to 13%. So we've got that now. There's still some sound coming through, but we're going to fix that on the effects tab. So now let's go to the effects tab. So let's start by adding a compressor. Put multiband on, turn the gain up a little bit. Turn the below to 0.75. Turn the highs up a little bit and the lows up a little bit. And then we're going to add a filter again to filter out the rest of the high-end sounds into this stab bass. And to do this, turn the cutoff right down and apply the LFO to it. So now this is applying to everything. So you see here on the mix channel, we've got the sub, oscillator A and oscillator B. Only oscillator A is going through this filter, but everything is going through the main effects here before it goes to main out, as you can hear. So let's just change the cutoff to 85%. And then we'll turn the drive up to 23%. And then we've got this sound here. And we can also turn octave 1 back down like this to get this sound. Let's just do a little bit to the compressor. So let's turn this up to 138. Turn the mids up to 130. And turn the lows up to about 117. And then we can just change this to taste. So we could turn this down if we wanted a little bit. Change this to +4 if we wanted. Now we're going to create a wobble bass, and again there's loads of different types you can make. There's so many in all my sample packs, especially the Future Jump Up pack, and this sounds like this. So let's initialize the preset, and we're going to use 2 sine waves for this. So basic shapes, minus 2 octaves for the first one, minus 1 plus 7 for the second one. We can turn the rand off for both if we want. And then to create this wobble, we're actually going to use something slightly different this time. We're going to grab this LFO, put it on half rate, leave it on retrigger because that causes the wobble. And then we're just going to drag this on thin here. And we're going to leave it on 100%. Now if we press play, listen to what happens. It creates this wonky wobble. Now if we come and add some effects to it, we can get this really low range wobble. So let's first start with a distortion. Go to diode 2. Change it to 13%. Now that sound's really starting to come through. Add a compressor, make it a bit louder. And then we can add a filter to get some different frequencies out. So we can add the add bass one and then just do this to taste and do it under some drums and a track as well so you can see what sounds good. So if we just do an example, turn the cutoff down and then the through up, drive up a little bit. And you see we get different results there. Turn the res up. And we can also now add more filters. So you could add another filter like this and then just like turn the drive up to get more bass in if you wanted. So you see before it's like this, but now it's like this. And that could sound really cool in your tracks. And then of course you can do it the more conventional way of creating a wobble. So if we just remove this, you can also of course turn both the levels off and apply an LFO here and then create a wobble this way. And then we can change the rate on here and the trip so we can make it like 140. And then like apply some noise for example. And then another thing I like to do is use the FM. So if we turn the level off here, and then we've got all the FM options from B, we can experiment. With all these different ones. And of course experiment with the shapes as well. You get the idea. Now if you've been watching my channel a long time, I made a video like this for Serum 1 ages ago and someone requested a Neuro Bass. So we're going to create a Neuro Bass now. And also if you like Neuro music, let me know in the comments what tracks you're digging right now and maybe I'll make some tutorials on that in the future. This Neuro Bass sounds like this. So let's initialize the patch. Now we're going to use a spectral sound for this. And for Neuro sound, typically more complicated wavetables sound better. And I like using these monster ones. So let's grab Monster 9 and turn this down 2 octaves. Turn the rand off. And then we're going to change it to about wavetable position 160 to 70-ish. Now we're going to turn the sub on, turn this -2 as well. And then what we're going to do is create this weird pitch down sound, which gives it a really aggressive transient, a bit like the 808 sound we went through earlier. So let's put it on envelope mode and then drag this down like this. And then let's put it on half BPM rate. Next, we're going to come to the matrix tab. We're going to come here and grab LFO1, and then we're going to come to destination, global, main tuning. And then we're going to change the amount to around about 19%. And listen to this now. You get that really aggressive sound at the start. Now we're going to come to the noise channel and we're going to add some noise to it. So any noise is fine. We can literally just leave it like this if we want. Then we'll come to filter and we can go to misc. And now we want to pick one of these more complicated tables again. Now the reverb one sounds great, but you can experiment as well. So let's grab this reverb one. And we're going to put this up right here, just so we've only got this bit in the high range at about 2,300-ish, 2,200 to 300, something like that. We'll just turn the drive up a little bit. and turn the res up a little bit to 15%. Again, you can change this later to taste. Now we want to come to the effects tab and add some effects to get the sound to come through. So let's start with a distortion. We're going to leave it on tube and we're going to turn the distortion up to like 80%-ish. Maybe a bit more. 83, that's fine. And next we're going to pick our compressor and go multiband. Turn the highs up a little bit. The lows up a little bit. This to 0.75. Turn the gain up a bit. And then let's fiddle around with these. So let's turn the bass up a bit, maybe like 130-ish. Maybe turn the highs up a tiny bit. That sounds pretty good. Now let's EQ out some of the muddiness. So we can literally just go like this, drop the gain and turn this on. We've now got rid of that annoying muddiness. And we've got this really dirty Neuro style bass. And of course you can change this to change the amount. If you don't want it as aggressive, you can have it like this. Or you could just have it more. The tone comes out a bit more when you have it on less. But that's just to experiment with. You could also try different monster shapes. And see what you can come up with. We can also play around with the wavetable position as well. So you could go like the unison maybe. And automate it to I don't know what. Okay, now it's time to make a Reese Bass. I recently made a video on my 3 favorite Reese Basses. You can watch it here. But I'll just show you one of the ones I made in this video now as well. It sounds like this. So we're going to leave this on default shapes and on a sawtooth. And we're going to put this down -1 octave. And then we're going to put it up 4 unison. And change this to 0.35. Next, we're going to turn the filter on. And we're going to turn the cutoff up slightly to about 740. Now what we want to do is turn the level up max. And then come to the effects and come here and add distortion. And we're going to pick diode 1. We're just going to boost the drive all the way up to 100%. And we've almost got the sound there. We just need to add a compressor on multiband. Turn the gain up. And again, that's sounding really good, but we can boost this even more with the multiband on here by turning these up. So we can turn the lows up to like 170. And we already start to get that bass through now. Sounds really cool. And we can just adjust these as well to taste. And then we can adjust the highs and the lows. And that's starting to sound really juicy now. So just play around with those values, see what works for your track. And then of course we can play with the octaves as well. So we could go like, we could go -2. And then we can play with the voicing down here as well. And so we can put it on mono, legato, and always. Turn this up and it will glide between the notes. And then you can try and create a little melody. So for example, or have it an octave down like this as well. And you see we can start to get some crazy sounds here. Now we're going to make a lead bass. Again, there's loads of these you can make, but I'm going to show you one that's really cool now. It sounds like this. Let's initialize this patch. And now we're going to use analog mini. And we're going to put the first oscillator down 2 octaves. And we're going to choose the exact same analog mini again. But this time put this one up for semitones. So we get this. Let's put these both to rand 0. And we're going to turn the unison up of the first one by 4. Then we'll turn the detune down to 0.08. And then we'll create a stabby sound with the LFO. So put it on envelope mode, and we're going to turn this right up to here. Change the rate on here so we can trip it and do a half trip. And then we can drag this down like this. and then put this onto the cutoff. So drag the cutoff all the way down, put the LFO on it, and then we want to put this through B as well. So it's going through both oscillators. And we get the initial sound. Let's turn the drive up a little bit. And these sound great in intros. You'll hear this in a lot of really cool, like euphoric drum and bass tracks. So let's just boost this sound now with some distortion. Let's just use some soft clip. Let's now add some chorus to get it more thick. Just turn the mix down a little bit. Now let's add some delay and put this on 116. I really like the new delay, by the way. It just feels so much better. Before it was like really compact and annoying, but on Serum 2 it's just nice. So let's turn the mix down a little bit. And we can start to get that. And let's add some reverb as well. Turn the lows up a bit so it's got a bit of a high pass filter. And change this to Hall. And now we have the base of the sound. Turn this up slightly. And you can like automate this so you can have it like this. Lots of cool stuff you can do with this sound. You could even have it higher, an octave. Or you could do like +7. And then this unison kind of sounds good, but I don't know, you might want to turn that off. Just depends on the style you're going for. And now let's go a little bit crazy and make a future bass. This is quite popular at the moment in drum and bass. It's just these really wonky basses, and there's loads of these in the future jumper pack. But let's make one now, the one that sounds like this. So as you can see, this is just one of many crazy sounds in the future jumper pack. So let's initialize the preset. And we're going to do oscillator A first. So we're just going to do basic shapes and the sine wave -2. And then we're going to turn the level off. And then we're going to grab oscillator B, go to val, and then pick the bottom one. Wow, wow. What a name. Put this -1. Change this to wavetable position 21. And then we're going to pick down here the mirror setting, which is here. And then we're going to turn this mirror up to 68% like this. So we get this weird sound. Now let's add a sub on, put it on direct out, so it doesn't get affected by any effects. -2 octaves. And just turn the level off for now. Now let's create the LFO shape. So we're going to put it on retrigger because it's kind of going to be a wobble bass. Let's drag this up to around about here. And then we'll just make this a bit taller here and this a bit shorter like that. We're going to use the trip mode again. So 1/4 trip because I love using that. And then we're going to drag LFO1 onto the level of the sub, oscillator A as well. And then we're not going to drag this onto the level of B because we're going to turn the level off here and we're going to do some warping. So we're going to use PD from B. So this is getting warped into here. And then we're going to do a percentage. So around 60%. And then we start to get this wobble bass sound. Now let's go to filter 1. Let's go to MISC and do low EQ6. Turn this cutoff right down here to about 35, 34. And then add LFO1 to it and drag this to about 38. Then we're going to turn this drive right up like this. Turn this D plus on to get this massive low end boost. And then we're also going to put the LFO1 on this mix here and turn it down just to make it go like that. Now we can destroy the sound even more with some effects. So first let's add a distortion. Let's do soft clip, about 70%. Let's add a compressor. And then let's add an equalizer, just getting rid of some of the high range up here. Turn this down like this. And then one final thing we can do with this LFO is apply it to this wavetable position here. And this is where you start to get to this crazy sound design here. So we can do it like 31%-ish. Turn this main vol down a little bit so it's not redlining too much. And then to make it go even more crazy, we can go to LFO2, put this on half mode. And then if we come to the matrix mode and go LFO2, and then do this fine tuning in the global setting, main tuning here, and literally just apply it to like 1%. it creates that little pitch automation that sounds really cool. And then we can change like the wave to position in here. And you get some really cool sounds. You can play around with different ones. And you can just really go crazy here and do some endless sound design, see what you can come up with. And then finally, let me show you a sub bass that always sounds really fat in your mixes. So it sounds like this. Let's grab an analog BD sine wave. So it's just a sine wave and put it down -2. So this is a basic sub, as you can hear there. And you can see on the Pro Q here, the EQ, it's just one big fat note here. But if we go here to around about 200, we've got all this low end space to include more stuff. So we can add more frequencies here to make the sub even fatter. And to do this, we can open the little editor tool here and essentially just clear all this and make bin 1 as big as possible. So we get that. Now we can grab bin 3 and make one here. Now suddenly you see we've got 2 lines. One thing you got to make sure is that this one is the biggest one, is the tallest one. Otherwise it's going to cause problems. So let's just make this one smaller. And then if we want to make it even fatter, we can add bin 5 here as well, like this. And suddenly you got this really thick sub bass. Let me just turn it up for you so you can hear it better. So it's worth experimenting with these different bins to create a sub bass that sounds fat. Let's try it again, just this one. You might want that one, you might want something like this. And that'll sound great. And then you can see here, you can also cut off any of the high end you don't want, like that. And then this one is the biggest, and then these two are just a bit smaller, like that. And that'll help thicken up your mix as well. And that is all the basses made. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out this video here where I actually make a drum and bass track from scratch. So you can put what you've learnt in this video to the test and make a full track.